Welcome back to EVE Online once again, everyone. I'm Kplays Games. Don't worry, even though you're looking at an Armageddon, this is not going to be a level 4 mission episode. What we're going to do today is bust some myths about EVE Online. I hang out in the help chat an awful lot and I see an awful lot of misinformation being given to players. I'm pretty sure it's not malicious, it's just things that people accept are true because they see other people saying it. This is how myths are born. The first myth we're going to address is which damage type to fire at Serpentis. Let's open some of their info pages at random. We'll do a couple of frigates, a destroyer, a cruiser, battle cruiser, we'll do a battleship as well. Right, I just picked all these things at random. Let's have a look at their resistances. Battle cruiser, 40% thermal, 30% kinetic. So this battleship is weakest to kinetic. Boop. How about this cruiser? 36 thermal, 26 kinetic, weakest to kinetic. Boop. This frigate, 15% thermal, 5% kinetic, weakest to kinetic. This destroyer, 20% thermal resist, 10% kinetic resist, weakest to kinetic. This battleship, 54% thermal resist, 44% kinetic resist, weakest to kinetic. So as you can see, Serpentis are weakest to kinetic. And yes, people will say, but oh, drones that fire thermal damage have a higher damage modifier. That is correct. Well, let's have a look at the figures, shall we? The Caldari Navy Hornet does 20 kinetic damage and has a damage modifier of 1.8, so that does a total of 36 kinetic damage. Whereas the Federation Navy Hobgoblin does 20 thermal damage with a 1.92 damage modifier, so that ends up doing 38.4 thermal damage. And yes, 38.4 is more than 36. But when you actually look at the ships you're shooting at, for example, this Corellum Chief Infantry, if we're firing 36 kinetic damage at it, and it resists 28% of that, it still means that 25.92 kinetic damage is getting through and hitting it. Whereas if we're firing the Federation Navy Hobgoblin thermal damage at it, firing 38.4 thermal damage into a 38% resistance results in 23.808 damage. So the kinetic one is dealing 25.92 and the thermal drone is dealing 23.808. So the kinetic drone is doing more. And I've actually gone through most of the Serpentis ships. I haven't done them all because I had just been saying, look at how many there are. I've gone through most of this list and run these figures with every different drone type. Large, medium, heavy, navy, Tech 1, Tech 2, I've done them all. And yes, Serpentis are weakest to kinetic. Do not believe anyone that tells you to fire thermal damage at Serpentis, with one exception, and one exception only. In the 4 out of 10 Serpentis DED site, in the final room, there is a Phi Operation Overseer battleship, and that actually is weakest to thermal. That is the one and only ship that I have found in the entire Serpentis race which is weakest to thermal. Everything else weakest to kinetic. Myth number 2 is that when you're doing pirate refuge combat anomalies, like you've seen me run many times before, if you shoot the 2 gun turrets and missile turrets that are in it, it adversely affects your chance of getting an escalation or a commander. Well, if you've been watching this series, you will know that I actually kept very close track of all the anomalies that I ran in the first 30 days of this character's existence. So we ran 237 refuges, and I was quite happily blowing up all the gun turrets as we went. We got 20 commanders and 16 escalations, and when you convert that into percentages, 16 escalations from 237 attempts works out as 6.75% success rate. And 20 commanders from 237 refuge site attempts works out as an 8.44% success rate. Now, it is widely held, and I know it is because I've tested it. When you run many tens of thousands of sites, you will see that the chance of success rate is actually 5% for all sites. I mean, 237 sounds like quite a big sample size, and it did take 30 days because that's how long I was keeping track for. So from our small sample size and killing the turrets, we've actually got more than 5%. But I'm sure if we kept going on and kept track and ran 20 or 30,000 refuges, we would end up with 5% whether or not we killed the turrets. So don't believe anyone that tells you not to kill the turrets. You can blow them up quite happily. Now, the third and final myth of this video, because this one's going to take a long time to explain, is about aligning and warping. So let's undock and explore this weird juju. The myth is that if you're mining in an asteroid belt and you align your ship to a station and then stop, it means that your ship is lined up with the station and you will get into warp faster if anyone attacks you. This is incorrect. It is a complete myth. EVE Online sees your ship as a sphere with the diameter of your ship's signature radius. So according to the game, we are a sphere, a diameter of 450 meters, and as the game sees your ship as a sphere, spheres don't have a direction. They don't have a front or a back or a left or a right or an up or a down. The only way the game knows what that sphere is doing is if that sphere is moving. So let's just test this. Let's warp to the nearest asteroid belt.
Warp drive active.
Well, the first one in the list, it might not be the nearest. The formula for getting into warp uses the vector, and the vector is which speed and direction this sphere is moving. If you have no velocity, then you have no vector, and it will take exactly the same amount of time to get into warp, no matter which way this cosmetic model of the ship appears to be facing, as we shall soon see. Now, we've warped from just below the station, but the station, it's one of these ones up here. It's the Tashmarkon Family Academy. It's 26.82 astronomical units away. So we have arrived at this asteroid belt more or less directly from that station. And what we'll do, we will wait until the ship comes to a complete halt, which takes quite a while because inertia is a thing. And EVE Online is more like a submarine game and uses liquid physics as opposed to real space physics. And when we come to a halt at 0.0 meters a second, we will warp back to the station from the direction we appear to be facing in, which is directly away from the station. And I'll put a timer on the screen and we'll see how long it takes. Now, our shipfit align time says that we should get into warp 14.83 seconds after we hit the warp button. 0.2 meters, see, it takes quite a while to get to 0.0. We have the station selected here. So I'll start the timer as soon as I click this button. Okay, we're at 0.0. Click the button, start the clock.
Warp drive active.
It looks, well, the game spins the ship model, but as I said, that doesn't matter because it's spinning a cosmetic model within the boundaries of the sphere. Okay, so that's the first test done. As soon as we get back to the station, we'll go right back to that asteroid belt and then align to the station, come to a halt, and then click warp again. And then we'll compare the times. Okay, back in the asteroid belt. This is what we'll do now. We'll align to the station. We'll turn on the tactical camera, tactical overlay. If you remember, this little blue arrow shows you how fast you're moving. And this line is leading to what we're aligning to, which is the station. Okay, I think we're aligned. Let's stop the ship. This is what people tell you to do. You come into an asteroid belt, you align to a station, then you stop, and then you begin mining. And the myth is that doing this will sling you into warp faster from a dead stop. Once again, we'll wait a little while for us to come to a complete halt. But now, the ship model is directly pointing right at that station we just came from. And eventually, there we are, 0.0 meters a second. We are now at a complete stop with the ship model pointing directly at the station. Let's click the button and start the clock.
Warp drive active.
Okay, in warp. We will do this again, but we'll actually be aligned and moving, and then we'll see what difference that makes. And here we are, yet again for the third time. Now let's align to the station. Then when we're aligned and going at maximum velocity, then we'll warp and we'll see what difference this makes. Because this time we will have a full vector. Because your ship gets into warp when the sphere is moving along a vector towards the target and hits 75% of maximum speed. This is how the game works. So we'll wait until we get to 120 meters a second, then we'll click warp and we'll see how quickly we get into warp this time. This is thus aligning at full speed towards the destination. I'm using the battleship because it has the slowest align of all the ships that I own, so it's better for this thing. If we were in a really fast frigate, the timings could be really, really tight and you wouldn't see much of a difference. If I had an Orca or a freighter, this test would be even more conclusive. 119, one more meter a second to go. Getting to that last 120 does take quite a while. Come on. Not sure we're ever going to get up to 120. Maybe it's a rounding error. Well, we're going about as fast as we can go, so let's click warp and see how fast we get into warp.
Warp drive active.
Well, I'm sure you saw the difference there. We got into warp much faster that time because the sphere, which our ship inhabits, was moving along a vector towards the target at over 75% of maximum speed. One more test. We'll go back to the asteroid belt and we'll manually set speed to 50% and then we'll warp back to the station again. So align to the station and then manually click on this. So it says 60, which is exactly half of our maximum speed. So again, we'll be aligning to the station at 50% of our speed. And as soon as we get to 60 meters a second, I'll click warp and we'll start the timer again. 59. 59.5. 59.9. 60. Okay, this is aligning towards the destination at half speed. Let's click the button.
Warp drive active.
And this time our ship was moving along a vector towards a target, and all I had to do was accelerate another 25% to get up to the 75% of maximum speed warp threshold. So I hope from what you've gleaned from this is that if you are not moving, you have no vector, and therefore the facing of the ship model makes no difference at all. Aligning only counts if you are moving, i.e. if your sphere has a vector. So if anyone tells you when you're mining or doing anything else, if you align to something and then stop, then you're not aligned, you're just stopped. What the developers have done is that they've made the turning of the ship model linked to more or less its basic align time. And if you stuff this with inertial modifiers, then you will get into warp before the ship model has turned to face the direction in which you're travelling. So you can quite easily warp battleships sideways, freighters especially, if you've got high skills, and or a friend hitting your ship with a web of fire, your freighter will quite often warp sideways, further underlining the point that the facing of the ship model does not matter at all. So I hope this little video was instructive. We've learned that Serpentis are always weakest to kinetic, even if you're using drones. We've learned that in Pirate Refuge combat anomalies, blowing up the towers has no effect on escalation chance or commander spawn chance. And we have learned that if someone tells you to align and then you come to a halt, you're not aligned, and it will take exactly the same length of time for you to get into warp if the ship model was facing away from the destination or towards it. Alignment only takes effect if you're moving along a vector. That's the end of our little Mythbusters episode. If you have any more misconceptions or myths you've heard about in EVE Online, let me know, and then I'll make another video about them, and we'll make EVE a better place for everyone, because knowledge is power. Come back for the next episode. I'm sure I'll start doing guides at some point, and until then, take good care of yourself, and I'll talk to you later.